Hi, and welcome to another segment of How to Live Your Best Life with me, Dr. Paul Meschino. And tonight what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the three most powerful ways you can recover from life's adversities that really have been proven through science to actually work. So tonight may be eye-opening for some of you, and because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take stress and I'm going to turn it on its head, okay? And I'm going to give you some practical advice and practical strategies that you can use in your life to actually apply right away. And that being said, I want to welcome everybody tonight. I see Vanya, Cirilla, Doris. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate you joining me tonight. Yes, good. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Great. So I see people coming up on screen as I talk here. This is awesome. Wanda, hi, Wanda. This is great. Thanks for joining me tonight. So I'm just going to continue. Hi, Ellis. I'm going to just continue here. This is, our second Facebook Live event of this group, and in the first one I did, I wanted to invite you to a coaching call, a live coaching call, where I can actually coach you through situations. And I realized that I didn't give you enough information. I want to give you much more information, much more strategies, so that you can apply in your life right away, so that we can actually discuss it online if you want to do that. So this is really a continuation of our first Facebook Live event called How to Add Years to Your Life and Life to Your Years. And you can see that on our Facebook page if you haven't seen it already. I also want to let you know that the last time I spoke to you was about, again, how to add years to your life and life to your years. And we went through 4 scientifically validated skills you could develop to do that, right? And I want to focus on one of those tonight, and that's called resilience. How to become more resilient. Now, what do I mean by resilience? Listen, if something bad happens, how quickly does it take you to recover? Some people, they recover quicker than others. Scientists are now measuring that recovery time. Look, if it takes you hours or days to recover, you're doing great. You have good resilience. If it takes you months, years, decades to recover, that's poor resilience. The strategies which I'm going to share with you tonight will help you with this. So, the opposite of resilience is called rumination, and in my clinical opinion, this is where you go over a negative thought, a negative feeling over and over again without completion. And sometimes we hold on to these sort of grudges for a long time, or we know some people who have grudges. I had a client who had a grudge against his mother for a significant amount of time. I said, well, how long have you been angry at your mother for? He says, well, since childhood, and he's some 40 plus years old. So that's actually ruminating for a long time. That's rumination for a long time, and that's poor resilience. That can actually detract years from your life. Then there are other people that are different. Something happens and they seem to let it go, and they seem to be okay. But then when you bring up the subject later on, about the person, they have strong feelings about it, and they have all these emotions come out. Well, what's really happening is they look okay on the surface, but subconsciously they're actually ruminating about it unconsciously inside them, and it's actually festering within them. Now that is a dangerous situation, because that can actually cause tensions and compressions in your muscles and your skeletal system. It can cause eventually disorders and diseases and conditions in your body. So what can we do about this? What's the best resolution for this? Is there a place where we can get to where we can be with that person or think about that person and not be upset? Be calm, clear, and collected? Well, yes. That happened to that client after 40 some plus years, and I truly believe it can happen for you too. There's a place where you can get to where you can, things that used to push your buttons don't push your buttons anymore. Things that used to get your goat don't get your goat anymore. And you can respond rather than react from emotions. Imagine how that would feel to be calm, cool, and collected around the people or the situations that used to upset you, and they don't upset you anymore. And that's really what we're here to talk to you about tonight. That's what I want to share with you, how to become more resilient in this way. Resilience, if we look at it, has a number of factors that contribute to it. You can draw what's called outer resources, or you can have inner resources that actually make you more resilient. Things that are helping you from the outside are having things like caring and nurturing relationships. That's a key one. Also, learning new skills such as how to communicate effectively, how to plan and set goals for yourself, increasing your physical health by doing exercise and eating right. These all contribute and build resilience. As far as inner resources are concerned, it's interesting enough, there's actually a gene they've identified that makes some people more resilient than others. Hi, Marion. And so as far as inner resources are concerned, now of all the resources that are available to you to actually build resilience, what do you think is the most important resource you have available to yourself to help you make yourself more resilient? And that is, I'll give you the answer, your mind. Okay? Your mind can be your worst enemy or your best friend. So it's imperative that you know how your mind works. And I think Dr. Leonard Shaw describes it beautifully, how the mind works, and very simply. He says that, listen, most people in life think that life is a two-step dance. Something happens that, say, we call bad, and then we're upset because of that something. But in reality, something happens, we make an interpretation of that something, and then we're upset because of our interpretation. It's our interpretation of that event, that person, that situation, that determines how we feel and how we react or act upon it. Okay? So it's our interpretation that determines how we feel and how we act. That middle step is key. If you can change your interpretation of the stress or the event or the situation, then you can change how you act, how you feel, and you can respond better to the situation. So it is our greatest resource, our interpretation of what's happening in our lives. And that's the key thing we're going to do tonight. I want to talk about 3 powerful strategies you can use, that you can use through your mind to help you to handle stress more effectively, to build resilience. Okay? Now, these strategies I'm going to share with you actually work. Okay? Science has shown them to actually work, but the stipulation is you have to work them. Listen, you can't learn these strategies in some sort of detached way and expect results. It's like throwing a can opener to a can and expecting the can to be opened. You actually have to work the can opener and work to get the can to open. Same with these strategies. You actually have to work them. Okay, that being said, 3 strategies. You ready? 1, apply the new science of stress to your life. Look, there's an old science of stress, and then there's a new science of stress. And the new science of stress is beautifully written and described by Dr. Kelly McGonigal, if you want to read her work. We all think that stress is bad, right? Well, guess what? Stress is not only not bad for you, but can actually be good for you. The new science shows that stress can actually be good for you. It can actually make you healthier. It can make you stronger, more resilient, but you have to know how to work with it. Let me explain. Look, in life, you're going to get triggered. You're going to get stressed. That's just how life is. It's how you process it, how you handle the stress that is most important. And some people don't handle it very well, right? Most people actually kind of distract themselves from the stress. They go out, and they smoke, or they have coffee breaks, or they drink, or they eat, or they watch TV, or they surf the internet. They distract themselves from the stress. Other people make more constructive choices for themselves, and they do things like meditation. And meditation is good for some things, but guess what? It's not very good for resilience. You need 6,000 to 7,000 hours of meditation in order to make a dent in your ability to become resilient in life. So that's not the most effective strategy. It can be good for other things, though. Some people say, well, medication makes me feel better. Taking medication. And that's great for anxiety and depression, but actually it's shown to not build resilience. It doesn't help with resilience. So these 2 strategies really are what don't work, okay? They're not very effective. So I don't want you wasting your time doing those things unless you have anxiety and depression that you need to deal with. It can be dealt with those things, or meditation for other reasons. But to build resilience, they're not the most effective strategies. There are other ways that are much more effective. And one of them is understanding and applying the new science of stress to your life. Let me explain. So listen, when you're under stress, what happens is your brain interprets the stress as a threat. And we often hear ourselves saying things that are threatful. We kind of go, oh my God, this is bad, right? This is awful. This will never end. There's no way out. It's his fault. It's her fault. It's my fault. This is going to make me sick. This is killing me. And I think we've all been there. We've all said these types of things. This is how we're interpreting the stress. If we're interpreting the stress that way, then yeah, stress is bad for you. I mean, it's no two ways around it. What happens is cortisol gets released in our bloodstream, and that surges through it and stays there, and we're interpreting the stress that way, that second step, as I mentioned to you, then it's going to be bad for us. It's going to actually have an effect on our physiology, predispose us to cardiovascular diseases, even cancer, metabolic diseases, autoimmune diseases, I mean, a whole slew of chronic metabolic problems. And we think that that's the only stress response we have. That's a typical thing that people know. We think, oh God, I'm under stress, it must be bad. Well, guess what? There's a whole other stress response that's actually good for you. And you can switch that stress response into a good one in an instant, just quickly. How you do that is you catch yourself, you catch yourself, you kind of go, okay, I'm over the initial shock of this. And you say, okay, this is not a threat. This is not going to kill me or define me. This is a challenge. This is a challenge. And I'm determined to find the resources to help me get through this challenge. That's how you actually switch your interpretation from a threat to a challenge. And I'm determined to find the resources necessary to help get through that challenge. In this way, you change the threat response to what's called a challenge response. And a challenge response is actually good for you. It feels the same in your body though. Your blood pressure may increase, your heart may race, you may get sweaty palms, you may get butterflies in your stomach, but that response in a challenge response is actually good for you. Why? Because it increases in our bloodstream a hormone called DHEA. And DHEA counterbalances the effects of cortisol, which actually improves our performance, makes us smarter, makes us more resilient, and physiologically actually makes us improve on our cardiovascular health, our mental health. It helps in all sorts of ways if we see it as a challenge. So simply transforming your perception, your step number 2, something happens, you make an interpretation. It's not a threat, it's a challenge. If you see it as a challenge, it's going to build resilience in you. It's going to help make you healthier actually, and it's going to build resilience. If you see it as a challenge and then you say, I'm determined to find the resources necessary to meet that challenge. I want you to try that strategy out, okay? And let me know how that goes. Right? It's a bit of a working model. Try it out for yourself. Okay, strategy number 2. Michael Brown, if you ever read his book called The Presence Process, The Presence Process it's called, and he says it beautifully. He says, don't blame or you be lame. It's a play on words. Don't blame or you be lame. Look it. Sometimes it's okay to acknowledge that you were innocent and you were a victim of a circumstance. It happens. But refuse to be a victim in the present moment. So you were maybe a victim in the past, but you refuse to be a victim now. That's key. You know, there's a misconception, a big myth about resilient people, that we think that they never experience negative emotions. But that's so not true. They experience the same negative emotions that everybody does. They just process them differently. Okay? They understand that the quality of their response to a challenge or situation is determined by the quality of questions they ask themselves. So in a crisis or in a situation, we often ask ourselves, say these questions to ourselves inside our brain. This is our second step. We say things like, why does this have to happen to me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with them? Why don't they behave like that? Why they should be behaving like this? What's wrong with them? You know, we say things like, why does this always happen to me? Why does this never happen for me? Why bother? It always turns out this way all the time. It always turns out this way. Why bother? Right? You got these questions in our minds. Instead, you want to ask higher quality questions of yourself. You transform your questions inside your head. You say, okay, who can help me with this? Who can help me with this? What do I need now? What can I do in this situation? How can I perceive this differently? How can I be of service? In asking higher quality questions, you get higher quality answers and higher quality solutions to your problems. The late Dr. Al Siebert, who's a psychologist, shares a really relevant story about a patient of his. And this is a true story. Her name was Cynthia. And I want to share this with you because it's really pertinent. Cynthia presented to his office and was in shock. She just heard the news. She goes, listen, I just heard the news. There's been widespread layoffs in the power plant in which I'm working, and I've just lost my job. And they're going to be laying off people in a couple of months, and I'm included in those layoffs. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. What's been happening, and why she felt so distraught about it, is that she had just left a 28-year marriage. It was a very difficult divorce. She left with very little money to set out on her own. She moved from a nice home into a low-rent apartment, and she hated it. And then at that time, her mother was diagnosed with a brain tumor, was dying of a brain tumor. So she was working on a shoestring budget and caring for her mother at home. She was under enormous stress and going through a difficult divorce. And then she finds out she's going to be laid off. Well, she had the same feelings that you would have. She's like, oh my God. Shock, despair, anguish, disarray, all those things. She felt all those things. She didn't have a Pollyanna approach, like everything's going to be okay, right? Resilient people don't have a Pollyanna approach. That's denial. Resilient people are truly in what's happening for them. And so she had this disarray, these negative emotions. But she refused to go into self-pity. She refused to feel like a victim. She said, okay, this is life. This is a challenge, if you will. What can I do in this situation? What can I do to help? And she saw that her coworkers and her were all in the same boat. And little by little, she actually started sharing for other people that were all talking about how to live on a shoestring budget, because she's been doing this for months now. So she was teaching other people, other coworkers that were going to be laid off, the same strategies. And she was feeling good about that, and they were really appreciating what she was offering. She says, what else can I do? How else can I help in this situation? So what she did was she approached the editor of the newsletter, person who's creating the newsletter for the Power Plant magazine, or I should say the newsletter of the Power Plant. And she said, listen, I think I can offer my services here. I can write columns for you if you want, articles on how to live on a shoestring budget that can get out to lots of people here that are going to be laid off. He thought about it. He says, that's a great idea. And he became enthusiastic. He says, we're going to call it Saving with Cynthia. So we'll give you a permanent column. And she started to write in the column, and people started to appreciate what she was writing. They started to call in to her directly, and she started to do this sort of impersonal, off-the-side counseling with people. In the meantime, weeks are going by. She's applying for job after job after job. She's not getting any jobs. And she's just living this life. And she's thinking, what's going to happen? But she kept persevering. And what happened weeks down the road, into a couple of months down the road, is that corporate headquarters of the power plant saw what she was doing. They said, you're doing a great job. So they contacted her and said, listen, you're doing such a wonderful job. You're helping a lot of people. We think you'd be great in our HR department. We want to offer you a job in our HR department. So what happened was the day she left the power plant, she was fired from there, laid off. She started the very next day in HR, being an HR consultant for the HR corporate headquarters. And she was paid more there than she was paid more in the power plant. Now, I don't think she would have had those opportunities come to herself if she just sat back and said, why me? And felt like a victim. And why is this all happening? You get it? So asking higher quality questions that she did, she asked, what can I do here to help? How can I be of service? These types of questions, higher quality questions, gave her higher quality answers, which allowed her to create opportunities and draw upon herself the situations to help her get through that situation. So I'd like for you and for all of us to ask of ourselves higher quality questions. Okay, this brings us to strategy number 3. Strategy number 3 is have empathy for yourself and others. Look, the research clearly shows that resilient people are adept at seeing things from another person's point of view. They're adept at that. And listen, empathy is different than compassion. I make a distinction here. Compassion is different than empathy. In compassion, you feel sorry for the person. You pity them, okay? And therefore you want to rescue them or save them or fix them or change them in some way. You feel compelled to do that. That's compassion. Empathy is different. Empathy is literally putting yourself in the other person's shoes and just feeling what they feel without trying to change or fix them, without trying to rescue them or help them. Just feel what they feel, just from another person's point of view, and see the world through their eyes. This is key, because sometimes we're upset because, someone does something that they shouldn't do, and it upsets you. Or you did something that you shouldn't have done, and it upsets them. This is where, and it's hard to get over those guilts or resentments, and this is where empathy and true understanding come into play. It would help with that client of mine who was holding a grudge against his mother for 40 years. What I literally did with him was I had him close his eyes and actually switch places with her, okay? And I wanted him to go back in history and live her life right up to the point where she misbehaved with him and feel what she felt inside her body and how she viewed life. Feel the feelings of the pain, the fear, the anguish, the terror, the suffering that she was in that led her to misbehave. I'm a strong proponent that all misbehavior is a result of internal pain and suffering. Once he was actually able to put himself in those shoes and feel the pain that she was going through that led her to misbehave with him, and her pain and his pain that he received from her was exactly the same, he was like calm, non-reactive, and allowed him to see her in a different light. He saw past her behaviors into the core of her, what was really driving her to behave that way. That was key, because if you become non-reactive, calm, clear, and collected, then you can get on with your life, okay? And you can resolve these issues. And so that's what happened with him. And it can work the other way around too. You could be holding judgment against yourself. This is where empathy comes in. To really go inside and feel what pain, what fear, what deep wound drove you to behave that way. Yes? If you have empathy for yourself, you become clear on yourself. You can get rid of a lot of guilt that way. The most common thing that all humans share in common is suffering. Joseph Campbell says it best. It's what all humans share. We all have suffered in some way, some form, some way, somehow. Okay? If you understand that, you understand people. You understand why they behave the way they do. Okay? So empathy really leads to non-reactivity. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be a doormat to their bad behavior. I'm not saying that. I'm saying to truly resolve the feelings within yourself of resentment or guilt, that's how you get there. That's a major step in getting through these situations. Okay? Now, these are 3 of the strategies which I'm going to present. There's more there that you can go through, but I want to ask if there's any questions. I want you to try that out for yourself, first of all, and give me feedback. I want to know how it's going for you. Just apply those 3 things. 1, we're going to review them, is apply the new science of stress to your life. Okay? Change a threat into a challenge. Say, this is not a threat. This is not going to define me or kill me. This is a challenge, and I'm determined to find the resources necessary to meet that challenge and live into that. Strategy number 2, don't blame or you be lame. Right? Ask higher quality questions. Know that the quality of response you give to your situation is determined by the quality of questions you ask yourself. Ask higher quality questions. Who can help me? What can I do? What do I need now? How can I perceive things differently? How can I be of service? Right? These are higher quality questions. They're going to draw upon you higher quality answers and solutions to the problems. You got to live into it. You live in the quest, as they say. Okay? And number 3, have empathy for yourself and others to resolve the internal state within you. So if you have guilt or resentments, it'll help to start to resolve those guilt and resentments if you can truly put yourself in another person's shoes and see from their perspective what pain led them to that misbehavior or led you to your misbehavior, if you will. Those are key factors. So if you do all those 3 strategies, and I said, try them out, let me know how it goes. I'm curious about your feedback. Any questions? And I'm looking at any questions at all. I'm just going to look up on my screen here. I see everybody online. I see Debbie online too. Hey Debbie, how you doing? This is awesome. And if you don't have any questions, I'm okay with that. I'm really interested in your feedback when you start applying them. Again, it's like a can opener. You got to start working them. I've still not figured out to find empathy for myself. Can you maybe cover that in more detail? Oh, I'd love to. Love to. It requires a deep exploration, and I guide people through this. And that's Donna Warden. Hi, Donna. How you doing? And so it's really, we sometimes superficially understand why we behave certain ways. It requires a deeper exploration, going back to what actually drives that behavior. And if once you're into understanding the emotion that's driving your behavior, then you ask yourself, how far back does that go? How far back in my childhood am I talking? When was that feeling originating in me? If it was fear, I acted out of fear, or anger, or frustration, when was that time I first felt that way? Was I 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever it is? You go back to that time period and you see what's happening around you. You kind of go, oh my God, no wonder I felt like that. That's the wound I've been carrying with me. I've been acting out of my wound. And you realize that you've been acting eventually really as a child would. That's how you see yourself, as a child reacting like that. And if you can understand your child feeling that way, an innocent child feeling like that, you can have empathy for that, for your child. If a 6-year-old felt that way, you probably have empathy for them. You have empathy for yourself in the same way. Yeah? Hopefully that helps. Hi, Adele. So any other questions? I mean, we can get into that much more thoroughly. I actually do consults in this, and people have actually, I've guided them through it so they feel the empathy for themselves and for other people as well. And it requires a really depth psychological look at yourself, which I can guide you through. Any other questions? Any other comments that you may have? I'm just waiting. This is awesome. This is awesome seeing everybody live here. I got to tell you, it's so nice to have everybody online. And I really appreciate you being here. So if there are any other further comments, you can write to me. I'll be happy to respond to you. As I said, I want you to try those strategies out and let me know how it's going. We'll be doing our next Facebook Live event in August, and I look forward to that. And so this is me, Dr. Paul Meschino, signing out. I want everyone to live their best life, and we'll see you next segment.